Just a second. Beautiful. We are live. So, good evening, everyone. This is Eric Mashinsky with the Gold Investment Letter. It is Sunday night, June the 4th, 2017. Really excited to have our guest on tonight, Rick Clark of Orca Gold, calling in from Toronto. We've been following the Orca story for some time. I've been following it for years. We got more heavily involved via a placement and also in taking a big market position in Q4 of last year. And I'm really excited about where this thing is going. Definitely one of my top 5 junior gold stories and picks. One of my top positions personally as well. And, we had Rick come and speak at our conference. And I really, with some of the news that has been coming out recently, very, very positive, I thought it'd be a great time to get an update. But then also, we have a lot of new subscribers that have come on since I talked about Orca last. So really just to introduce the story to some new folks as well. So welcome, Rick. How are you?
Thanks, Eric. I'm great. It's nice to be back talking to you and have a lot more news to share with you and your subscribers.
Wonderful. So I'm just going to let you roll with it. Why don't you take us through the PowerPoint and tell us the story?
Okay. Thanks, Eric. Well, first, as an introduction, everyone, that it's been quite a game changer since the last time we did a presentation, even as, recently at Eric's conference in Miami. We have been working diligently to look at expanding this project, and that was completely dependent upon us discovering water. We are in the desert, we're in the Sahara Desert, and you can have the greatest gold deposit of all time in the middle of one of these deserts, but unless you find water, you're going to be limited in how you develop it. And I'm very pleased to be in front of you this evening telling you that we have effectively found what is, I'd like to say, is almost an ocean under the Sahara Desert. And we're not going to have any limits on how big we can make this mine. And that is really what is going to be driving the work that we're going to be doing for the next 6 months. So that's my foreshadow to the presentation. So let me take you through that. First of all, the disclaimer. Many of you would have seen a slide like this. We've updated the numbers. We are in, for those of you who don't know our story, we're in the country of Sudan. And I'll touch upon the politics of that in a little bit. The management team of Orca is the former management and development team of Redback Mining. And we have developed mines in the desert before, the last one being in Mauritania. And that is now owned by Kinross, and it's one of the largest gold deposits in Africa today. And Kinross is working diligently to develop that to its full potential. We saw what we thought was an even greater potential for gold discoveries in the country of Sudan 5 years ago. That's how long we've been there. We took a political call on Sudan, and I'm happy to report that that political call has turned out in the direction that we want it to go. And so we're now poised in a situation where Sudan is looking to be embraced again by the Western world, particularly in its support about fighting against terror, not the least being against ISIS and Al-Qaeda. And we fully expect that the sanctions, ratification of the removal of the economic sanctions against Sudan are going to take place in July under the Trump administration. And that means that Sudan's going to be open for business to the world. And we're sitting there as a first mover advantage, having discovered what today stands as one of the largest undeveloped gold projects in Africa. So we came out with a PEA in July of 2016. That has been eclipsed by our recent numbers. And I guess the easiest way to give you an idea of the quantum of that is to tell you that the net present value of our PEA back in July versus the one we just released is an increase of almost 80%. And that is primarily due to the discovery of a lot more water. And that is allowing us to process this project at a much, much greater rate. The work that we have been doing on the project for the last 6 months has been what we'd call a pre-feasibility. Our technical work, our results, our engineering, our planning, everything is at a pre-feasibility level. And we have made the decision, given the positive results that we have to go straight at this point, rather than completing the pre-feasibility, our board of directors have the confidence to go straight to definitive feasibility study, or what many people would call a bankable feasibility study. And that's what we're doing, and we're shooting for delivery of that document in Q1 2018. So over the next 6 months, we'll be working on the final engineering of the project, and from an engineering and a development perspective. But at the same time, we're going to be doing a lot of exploration, and I'll explain why we're doing that as we go through the presentation. The slide we're on is just a slide of who's who in Orca. You can see a relatively low number of shares issued, current share price, market cap of $46 million Canadian. And we're looking at the Lundin Group, or Lundin family, being the largest shareholders at almost 20%. Ross Beatty, another very famous Canadian mining entrepreneur, at 12. Kinross will be approximately 8.6 over the next few months, and management's sitting at about 5%. Who we are. I was the CEO of Redback and led that company from creation all the way to its sale to Kinross back in 2010. I put the management team together that is now part of Orca. Hugh Stewart has probably discovered more ounces in Africa than any other geologist in modern times, and he is directly responsible for the discovery at Block 14 in Sudan for us. Kevin Ross was involved in the expansion of our Toronto project in Ghana, and was the leader in building and expanding Tasiast before we sold it to Kinross. And Jeff Yip is a young, very talented financial guy who is our CFO, and has been brought up in the Lundin Group under very experienced financial people over the last few years. Board of directors, Simon Jackson, who was my number 2 at Redback, now runs a company called Bedell out of Brazil, and Simon's based in Perth. Simon is the chairman. Alex Davidson really needs no introduction. He was the senior vice president of exploration of Barrick for many years, and is responsible during those years for a lot of Barrick's exploration success and turning projects into mines. Bob Chase was head of the Redback audit committee. He's head of our audit committee. David Field was the senior resource portfolio manager at Carmignac in Paris, the largest private wealth company in Europe. And Derek White is, again, a very experienced operational management mining executive, and has been involved in numerous projects, both in South America and other parts of the world for many years. Sudan. Well, Sudan's an interesting place. It's one of the largest countries in Africa, even after the split. But most importantly, it's looking to be this year to be the second largest gold producer in Africa, following South Africa. What is amazing about that is nobody knows that. And it is also producing that amount of gold with no commercial mines, no significant modern commercial mines. This is a country that is producing its gold by artisanal mining. There's over 1 million, somewhere between 1 and 1.5 million Sudanese mining gold in Sudan and producing that gold. And the production level continues to increase. So what that told us, and what that tells us, is Sudan has a huge gold endowment, and what it really needs is a lot of modern exploration and development. And we expect that over the next 10 years, you're going to see Sudan, probably next to South Africa, be the predominant commercial gold country in Africa, with lots of different mines on the drawing board. That is going to happen because, as we fully expect, as I said at the outset, that the US government is going to ratify President Obama's decision to ease sanctions on Sudan, which took place in January. The next trigger date is July, and every indication is that the Trump administration is going to continue Obama's policy and bring Sudan into the Western world, particularly as an ally against terror in this region. That's going to open Sudan up for commercial business. And as we said, Orca sits there as the first mover in the country with a mine that is months away from being able to go into development. Sudan has been certainly a surprise to us. It's the easiest place we've done business in Africa. It's a very receptive government, a very moderate Muslim culture, very friendly people. We have had no security issues. We have a large camp in the north of over approximately 100 people. We have no guns. We've never been accosted. We've never been threatened. It is really an amazing place to do business for a mining company. Not only from a cultural and a population perspective, but also from a logistics perspective, as I'll touch upon as we go through this. We've already talked about this. This slide, next slide, just tells you, it gives you an idea of how Sudan's gold production has grown. And down in the right-hand corner is a copy of the executive order of President Obama easing the sanctions back in January. So where we are, look, we're in the very north of Sudan, right up against the Egyptian border. There is nothing here. There are no people. There are no indigenous people. There's no vegetation. There's literally no animals. There is no water table, nothing. There's nothing to hurt from an environmental perspective, which makes this unique from a mining opportunity. And we feel that this mine can be put into production probably faster than any other mine we've ever built in our group. And so that's what we're looking to do. The only near-term deposit to us is Managem. It's about 100 kilometers to the south. Managem is the Moroccan state mining company. They have a deposit that looks to be about approximately the same size as ours. Up until this point, the big challenge for them has been water as well. Our new discoveries are going to probably change all that, and we'll watch and see carefully how Managem and the government of Morocco proceeds over the coming months vis-a-vis both our gold project and our water discovery. So here's what's key to this. As I said, we are looking, our main deposit is Galat Surfer South in the middle of the slide. To the right, 65 kilometers away is Wadi Doum, which is a satellite deposit of high grade. To the north in the pretty colors is our first water discovery. That water discovery was only going to allow us to produce approximately at a throughput of 1.8 million tons. We realized that we could produce a lot more, or if we could find more water, which inspired us to do an extensive airborne geophysical program, which was completed very recently and carried out over the last couple of months. And that discovered the Area 5 water resource down in the bottom left-hand corner of the slide. That, as I said, is a veritable sea of potable water under the Sahara Desert, 85 kilometers away from where we're going to put our plant. And that has been a game changer for our project, turning it from a modest potential development into what we think is going to be one of the major developments in Africa over the next few years. At the next slide is a picture of our exploration camp. It shows you we're in the middle of nowhere. There's no fences here. No guards, nothing. We are very safe, and we work very, very well with the local artisanal miners. And we fully expect that relationship to blossom and improve as we go into development and we start hiring those people as part of our project. What's key here is this is a very, very well-researched project. Over 80,000 meters drilled, or approximately 80,000 meters drilled to date. The next program between now and Christmas is another 30,000 meters, which I'll touch upon as we go into exploration. But also what's important here is 92% of the resources we talk about here are indicated. In other words, and they're in the optimized pit shells. So these numbers are real. What we're seeing in the market today is a lot of companies fall flat in their face because of resources and recalculation and mistakes, reconciliation problems. We knew that we're in the middle of a difficult country in terms of perception, a difficult country in terms of logistics, and if we were going to tell the world that this was real, our numbers had to be absolutely ironclad. And having built mining companies before and mining projects before, we used exactly the same people we have done in the past, and we're very confident with our resource numbers and how those are going to convert into reserves under the bankable study. I'm not going to go too much into geology at all. All I'm going to tell you here is what's unique about our deposit at Block 14 is they are very wide. The mineralization is very consistent, which makes it very amenable to mining, open pit mining. The strip ratio under the new PEA is 2.3 to 1, which is very, very low, and it makes the economics excellent. But what is important about these slides is you can see the PEA shell, which is the black line. The old one is the white. And so the new PEA has gone down and grabbed a lot more mineralization. What we're doing now is, well, these shells, okay, these optimized shells have bottomed out on drill data. In other words, our drilling has not gone deep enough. So part of the 30,000 meters that we'll be drilling between now and December is to go deeper underneath these pits and then allow the engineering to take the pits as deep as they can go based on economics. So where exactly we'll end up by Christmas time, we're not exactly sure, but I can tell you it's going to be significantly bigger than we've announced to date. We're looking to, with the water we have, also increase the production throughput. So the economics, by the time we announce the DFS, we expect are going to be much more robust than even they are now that we put out a week ago. So it's a very, very exciting project. This is a cross-section of the satellite pit. What's important here is the high grade. This will be mined in the first 4 years, which allows us to maximize the economics early on in the project. And more importantly, we've discovered another satellite high-grade deposit that is not in the resource yet, and it also is going to be drilled off for the DFS, and I fully expect we're going to have high-grade resources from that coming into the new study, which is also going to change the production profile under the bankable document. So here's what it looks like today as of last week when we reported. And keep in mind, the resources are calculated at $1,100 gold. And the economics that we've disclosed are calculated at $1,200. There are very, very few mining companies, gold mining developers today, reporting numbers that low. We did that because we knew we had to be conservative in order to show people the potential of this project in this area of the world. So very strong, both pre-tax and after-tax NPVs. The life of mine right now, 13.2 years. We're going to be looking to keep it that way, even though we expect to have greater production and more resources. And the idea of that obviously is to increase throughput and thereby significantly, again, increasing NPV. Right now, we've gone from approximately, in the last PEA, 75,000 ounces a year to 135,000, which is a huge uptick. What we'll end up doing, look, what I'm trying to shoot for is in excess of 150,000 ounces a year for life of mine, which will make this one of the world's better gold mines, irrespective of jurisdiction. Okay. Under the DFS, we're also doing a lot more metallurgical work, looking to tweak the recoveries, make some big difference on economics. But even so, even with the numbers we have today, you're looking at very low all-in cash costs and operating costs. And the CapEx, a lot of people are having troubles believing the CapEx at 211 million. But I can tell you, we've looked at these numbers 3 ways to Sunday. Our consultant, Lycopodium, just completed a mine in Burkina Faso, a very similar throughput. They designed it, they built it, and they're the ones that have compared our CapEx numbers to that CapEx and have come back and are completely convicted that and stand behind that $211 million number. So pretty exciting stuff. For us, that's a number that is financeable, even with our market cap at $45 million. Okay. The next slide just gives you an idea of sensitivities. This is a project that is sensitive to gold price on the upside. So if you're a gold bug, you believe that gold's going to go over $1,300, then this will give you an idea of where the numbers in this project are going to go, given the current PEA numbers. We'll have a look at what gold price is in December. We may restate it if it's strong, and combined with new production numbers, we think you're going to be looking at another step change on the economics of this project. Okay, exploration. As I told you, what we're doing between now and Christmas is a 30,000 meter exploration program that is going to go and drill below the existing pit shells to extend them to depth. It is going to drill off the Lasui high-grade target. It is going to also drill high-grade shoots that we've discovered in our pits or around our pits. And those will be independently targeted with the idea of looking at an underground scenario in conjunction with the pits. Right now, there are no high-grade underground resources in our economics, but we hope to come in with a scoping study by December that again will show the continued upside of the project beyond the open pit life. So look, this is an incredibly exciting project. It's got grades in open pit people envy, and believe me, on the underground potential side, it's got grades that any mining company in the world would love to have. Okay, in terms of timeline, the bankable study we're looking to complete in Q1 of next year. Permitting is going to start in Q1, and actually pre-construction is going to start in Q1. We're going to be looking to build the water pipeline. We're looking to build the construction camp and also the airstrip of the project. Exploration, that whole program I've been talking about, we're looking to have completed by the end of the year. So that's Sudan, but just before leaving it, Sudan, I want to emphasize that we've been struggling telling this story, despite the huge geological potential of this asset. We struggle to tell the story because of Sudan and the perception of Sudan. I can tell you that perception is not real today. It has been, as I said at the outset, a real pleasure for us to work in this country. There are sins in the past. I won't pretend there's not sins in the past in this country, but I've got news for you. There's sins in the past of every country in Africa, and it's been a long time, really, since those sins took place. And Sudan has been working extremely hard to be a good national citizen, international citizen, and to be brought back into the Western world. And that is being acknowledged by the United States. And as I say, we are confident, very confident, that it's going to be further acknowledged in July. And we're going to see Sudan open for business, which puts us in an amazing spot. Okay, going quickly to Cote d'Ivoire, we put another leg on the stool of Orca Gold with a deal with Kinross, whereby we are acquiring all Kinross's assets in Cote d'Ivoire. What's key here is those assets were ones we discovered as management of Redback way back when. And since Kinross acquired Redback from us, they have done little, if any, work in Cote d'Ivoire, focusing on brownfields exploration on their projects and other initiatives. We have been successful in convincing Kinross that the right thing to do here is to give us those assets back for a piece of Orca. That way they can share in the potential upside in Sudan, and also what we do in terms of grassroots exploration leading towards discoveries. We think we're very good at that. I think Kinross agrees. And so they have transferred us all those properties in exchange for a piece of Orca and a small net smelter royalty. For us, what's important is we know these projects, we stake them, we've done all the work on them to date, and in particular, a property called Morondo. We've cut it off a little bit, but let me, there's more slides on the website, but let me tell you, Morondo already has a discovery on it, and we're going to be going in between now and Christmas and putting a very fast, extensive drill program in it, looking to turn it into a resource. And we'll make a decision by Christmas also whether or not we're going to advance that further. But right now it's very exciting. It allows us to quickly go in and develop something that has the potential to be another development project for Orca in the short term. So stay tuned on all that. And where we are at the moment, as I said, is we obviously have the guys that can build this. We've got strategic shareholders, strong financial backing, great projects, and it looks like we're going to be operating in a much different political system than we have been up until now, with Sudan emerging into the Western and European world. So where we are on all this work, we're now going to be doing a financing over the next few weeks, and we're looking to raise some money to take us to the completion of the definitive feasibility study. Fully expect all the major shareholders will contribute as well as management, and we are only going to a very select group of people on this. We don't need a lot of money. It's going to be somewhere between 15 and $20 million Canadian, and that'll take us straight into where we're going to be raising the money for construction financing in Q1. And we're going to try to limit dilution in that regard. And as I said, Eric's been following us for a long time, and his subscribers, and so this is an opportunity that we're sharing with Eric and potentially you people that are listening to be involved in this financing. And it's something that I'm sure Eric will be talking about and looking to coordinate over the coming days. So thanks very much, and I'll open it up to questions.
Beautiful, Rick. I appreciate it. So one of the things that's very attractive about this entire situation for me is the people involved like yourself. The one thing I don't think you touched much on in the beginning, and some people may not be familiar, is the massive success that you guys did have at Redback. So my comment would be, maybe before you answer the question that I'm going to ask, just give people a little color on what that actually looked like in terms of monetary returns for investors and stakeholders. But what if you look at Block 14 versus Tasiast? What kind of potential are we talking about? Is it apples and apples or apples and oranges in terms of blue sky? And when you sold Tasiast to Kinross back in the day, I think it was 2010. What stage was that project at? Did you already start to build the mine, or were you in feasibility stage? Where were you at?
Okay, let me start with your latest question and go back. When we sold Redback to Kinross, Tasiast was in production, had been in production for a few years, and we'd actually expanded it. And we were looking at another major expansion for Tasiast, which would have been the second expansion. And Kinross came in and bought it at that point. And the reason they bought it is when we built it, it was a modest deposit of 1.2 million ounces, okay, of indicated. And so substantially smaller than what we have here in Sudan even right now. But we put it in production and we continued exploration, which is what we do. And we were lucky enough to discover a major deposit. In other words, what we touched at Tasiast was scratching the surface, and we were lucky enough to hit effectively a bonanza. And I think today the stated indicated inferred is somewhere in the range of, call it 15 million ounces by Kinross. You can play around with that, and it's likely it's over 20, depending upon how you engineer it. And when you think that started off with a 1.2 million ounce reserve and a 2 million ounce resource, that's pretty incredible. What's different about Tasiast and Sudan is all those ounces that were discovered are in a very distinct geological formation. We have not found something that large to date in Sudan, but we've found a lot more things around the main deposit in Sudan, which has not been the case in Tasiast. So there's a lot of people looking, or have been looking. There's some companies in the area, but nobody's duplicated the success even of the first resource at Tasiast, let alone what Kinross is developing now. And as I said, we're on to a lot more different targets in Sudan. It's an area, as I said, we are the only ones that have explored there, the only ones that even have put a drill hole in the ground. And so what potentially is there on a 2,100 square kilometer project going forward? Who knows? We haven't done exploration on this thing in almost 2 years because we've been focused on engineering. So how big it can be, how many deposits? Look, I think the world's your oyster. As I said at part of the outset at the beginning, Managem, the Moroccan company, 100 kilometers to the south on the same structure, has a 4 million ounce deposit. So look, this is an incredible gold area. The only thing that has held back a feeding frenzy of the international mining community has been Sudan's political perception and economic sanctions. And as I said, that's going to change, and let's see how the world unfolds.
Great, and if I recall, Rick, you started Redback basically as a shell, as a startup back in 2000, 2001, and it took you like 10 years to divest it. And I believe, if my numbers are correct, it was about 7.2 billion US, 9 billion Canadian. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it is, Eric. When we floated Redback at the outset, it had a market cap of about $40 million Canadian. And 8 years later or so, sold it to Kinross for 9.2 billion Canadian.
And how long is Orca? How long have you guys been working on Orca? It's been over 5 years now.
Yeah, it's been 5 years to this point. And the time difference is I mean, it's an interesting time difference. Do we think in 3 years we're going to realize significant shareholder value? The answer is absolutely yes. In fact, this has been a bit of a harder process than Redback, because the projects, when we took the projects on, both in Ghana and Mauritania, they were far more advanced than Sudan. In other words, there was a lot of drilling, a lot of information that we could get our heads around. We had to come into Sudan and create it. So we're doing this at light speed. And as I said, over the next 3 years, we should significantly be able to unlock value.
So one of the things that I've said a couple of times, to people before, just basically looking at the blue sky of the opportunity and from where it is today, you could talk about 7 billion or 9 billion, but I mean, that was a monstrous acquisition by Kinross, and your valuation was very, very good. It's hard to hit lightning twice, but the way that I look at it is that from today's valuation, we've got about 115 million shares outstanding at 40 cents Canadian, call it. You're looking at, as an investor, if you just have 10% of the success you had with Kinross, it's a 20 bagger. We're talking about a market value going, call it, to 750 million US. It's 20-fold your investment from this point. I don't know if you have any comps that you could throw out there from getting from this point to that point, or even just speaking to, is that realistic? I mean, is this a situation where you could end up selling it for 500 million to $1 billion, and is that your plan?
Well, look, I think the only thing I'd like to say at this stage is, look, our net present value numbers are out there in the market for this project, and our share price is where it is. So people can have an idea just on the current PEA that we put up what this project's worth and the unrealized value of the company. There's no question we're going to have different numbers come the end of the year, and that that differential will be hopefully quite a bit different again. Look, going forward, you have to understand, Redback, we were in the right place at the right time, right market. You make your own luck, don't get me wrong, in this business, and we worked our asses off to create these companies and make these discoveries, and happened to be at the top of one of the biggest gold booms in the last century. And so people can say, you guys are geniuses and you priced it right. Yeah, okay, let's be honest, it was a fluke in the sense of the timing, not in the sense of the assets, but in the sense of the timing. And unfortunately for Kinross, very quickly after we did that deal, the gold market tanked, the equities market tanked, financings were gone, and everybody decided that the love affair with precious metals was over. And so it wasn't our transaction that caused all that grief for Kinross, quite frankly. It was the market after the transaction and how everything has developed since then. I think we're looking, and we're at the bottom. I really do believe we're at the bottom of what we're looking. It could be the next precious metals cycle. And what's interesting here is everybody has to understand there's no great projects in development or near-term development out there. The majors are all scrambling for brownfields exploration, and they're dusting off some they have in inventory. We're seeing some M&A activity, but really the pressure on the gold side, things are going to fall off a cliff in about 5 years, and you're going to see the majors having to go out there and buy inventory. to maintain their gold production profiles. And we think both for those that are have the mindset to go into Africa, we're pretty much a no-brainer as the political situation improves in Sudan. Where it all ends up, Eric, look, I mean, we are agnostic. We don't fall in love with our projects or our egos. We're sitting here and looking for full value for shareholders, and we're always the biggest shareholders in what we do. We write our own checks, as you're going to see in this financing. And so if we, at any stage of the game, think that, for our shareholders, there's a great deal on the table, then we will transact that deal. If that happens pre-production, we'll do it. If the best thing for our shareholders is to build this mine, we'll do that too. We're totally capable of doing all of the above. So, I think what's safest for people to understand who may want to invest in Orca is always remember that, we're in the same situation and the same investment as you guys, and we only make money when there's a deal.
Yep. And I've got one last question for you, Rick, but before I throw that at you, I find it interesting that tonight, after Friday's session in the gold market, now over 1280, I'm not seeing a ton of people talk about this, but this 1280 to 1300 level, if it goes there, if it breaks out and we have some volume this week on gold, it would be breaking out of not only the 1 year downtrend line, but also the entire trend line that we've seen since 2011. And I've been cautioning against really putting a nail in the coffin, so to speak, as it pertains to saying that we're in this new gold bull cycle until that happens. And we're looking like, it could happen here. If it does, this is going to become a much better market for juniors and gold companies, probably very fast. And who knows how high it goes. But last thing for you is drill results and assays. Do you have anything from what you've done this year so far still to come out of Block 14? And then what kind of a budget are you expecting in terms of exploratory drilling there for the rest of the year, and as well as in Côte d'Ivoire?
You're going to be seeing drill results, exploration results steadily now, but from now, well, let's say 6 weeks from now, because we've just starting drilling. But 6 weeks from now, right to the end of the year, will be a steady flow of results. And the budget approved by the board on exploration that Hugh Stewart's presented to us is about $7 million US. So, and just to comment on your editorial there, Eric, look, our view on this is, if you look at gold price is doing great. When you think about this, we get all-in costs in the 700s. Gold at 1280 is a huge financial win for us. And for a lot of companies, don't get me wrong. But the gold price is doing great, the gold equities are not. And that's a bit of a disconnect that will catch up. And that's on the one hand. The other hand is the market then realizing that there's not a lot of great projects out there. Who's got them? How can these be transacted? Is the management team there that can do that? Can the management team raise the money? And those are the types of things that investors have to ask themselves when they look at these things.
Absolutely. Well, Rick, it's always a pleasure to talk to you and hear what you're doing. A lot of the progress that we've seen since we invested some money in the fourth quarter has been fast and all very, very positive. So this water's huge news, and going through a definitive feasibility versus PFS just shows your confidence in the project. So we're going to continue to support you, and we'll look forward to giving people an update, probably again in the fourth quarter.
Perfect.
Thanks so much, Rick. Have a great Sunday night.
Thanks very much.
Ciao.